Welcome to the jungle, Bengals fans. I'm Kyle, and today we're breaking down the Bengals' gut-wrenching 34-31 loss to the New York Jets. I want to kick things off by thanking everybody who managed to catch my inaugural live stream episode during the game. I'm hoping to put out a lot of good content going forward. Unfortunately, it all starts with this absolute stinker. I was hoping to start this series off with, a fun win against, hopefully against a team like the New York Jets that the Bengals should be able to go in and beat. The hope was that, oh man, they got all this momentum. They're going in against the New York Jets. They can get 3 road wins in a row. They can start off the season 6-2 and, have a whole lot of good feelings, especially after that big win against the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Unfortunately, they fell to 5-3 against one of the worst teams in the NFL. And to be clear, the Jets have played a few teams close this year, and they even beat the Tennessee Titans in Week 4. The Tennessee Titans went on to beat the Buffalo Bills, and now they're considered to be one of the best teams in the AFC among all these other teams. So it's not the end of the world that the Bengals lost this game. It does suck, and it's going to suck all week. But if you can go in and you can play the Browns next week and you can bounce back, then that's going to be huge. So my first thoughts, it's an unbelievable way to lose, and it kind of makes you feel like this is the same old Bengals, The defensive line was getting pressure, but they also weren't getting anything done against the running game. It seemed like, every time somebody touched the ball, at one point, not throughout the whole game, but at one point it seemed like every time somebody touched the ball, it was a 10, 11, 12-yard gain. And there were stops. The defense got some stuff done, but they weren't consistent with it. And because they weren't consistent with it, you had these issues where they just couldn't get off the field. Now, there were some issues, especially with the offense, where they were leaving stuff on the field. Right after Jesse Bates got his interception, and he almost ran it back for a touchdown. And you had a lot of good positive momentum and a lot of good feeling coming from the Bengals at that point. So Joe Mixon has a 1-yard loss. Jamar Chase drops the touchdown, and Joe Burrow gets sacked for a 12-yard loss. So you end up on the Jets 15 when you started at the 1-yard line. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And on top of all that, the Bengals doing nothing but going backwards on that entire drive. And as much as I like, Zach Taylor being aggressive and going for it in most situations, in this particular situation, I'm not sure what he's thinking. You have absolutely zero momentum going into this play. And you could take a field goal, at least take the points, especially when you got nothing going on offense right now. And, I mean, this was all part of a horrid first quarter for the Bengals, and just the offense wasn't getting anything done, and they definitely didn't get anything done on that drive. End of the game, Bengals lose by 3 points. That field goal looks pretty useful right about now. Now also, Jamar Chase catching that touchdown pass, that would have helped a lot too, because then the Bengals get 7 points, and based on everything that happened, the Bengals squeak it out for a win at the end. Now, that's not the way the Bengals wanted to win this game going in, but at the end of the day, if you get the win, that's what matters, and that's what everybody's going to look at. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. The Bengals got the loss, and now everybody is looking at why did they lose. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody's looking for someone to blame, and to be completely honest, I think just about everybody deserves blame. Even Joe Burrow had a pretty good game. But there was the interception, which wasn't entirely his fault. It got tipped, I understand. But you can't throw that ball right there. And in addition to that, he was having some accuracy issues throughout. In his defense, he finished pretty good. I don't blame Joe Burrow for this loss at all. He had 259 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. He had the 1 interception, which was really poorly timed and killer. And I think, why did you throw that ball at that moment? But it also did get tipped, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. He ended up with a 102.5 passer rating. So it's like, how can you really go too hard on him for this one? Really, I don't see anything on the offense that makes me think that, this is the reason they lost. Maybe other than that Jamar Chase dropped touchdown. But on the defense, it's like, Chidobe Awuzie, supposedly this amazing cornerback we added through free agency. just did not have the best game in coverage this week. Logan Wilson, our star linebacker, was getting worked in the middle of the field. The whole line, all the linebackers, the whole linebacker core in general, was getting worked in the middle of the field. And then there was just the fact that the Bengals apparently had absolutely no answer to the Jets' play-action game. Like, and the thing that infuriated me was the fact that they kept doing it over and over and over and over. And you're telling me you can't come up with something? I mean, I can't come up with something because I'm not, like, I'm not a professional doing that as my job. But you're telling me Lou Anarumo, you can't come up with something to slow them down after they've been doing it over and over and over and over again to you the same way? Mike White should not have had 405 yards passing today, but he did. And he did because he just, it wasn't anything impressive either. It was short dump-off passes that just kept getting like big chunks and big chunks and big chunks. Because the Bengals, I think what the Bengals were doing was they were trying to keep the game in front of them, but they were just doing way too much of that. They were like, oh yeah, you can have these 11, 12-yard chunk plays. And I guess the thought process is you're not letting the big play go. But those are still pretty big plays. And if you let them do that all game, that's going to add up. And that right there is a big, big reason you can point to as to why we lost this game. Real quick, I do want to address the unnecessary roughness, the helmet-to-helmet hit that Mike Hilton got called for. My dad specifically sent me a text about this at the very end of the game, and I was doing the live stream, so I couldn't respond to him right away. But he made a pretty good point. He's angry because he doesn't feel that Ty Johnson was a defenseless receiver. He'd already had the ball in his hand, he'd already taken some steps, and so you can't call Mike Hilton targeting a defenseless receiver like that because he wasn't a defenseless receiver. And what ended up happening was Mike Hilton ended up going low so that he could get some leverage to bring this guy down. And that was basically the only way that you're going to bring him down in that situation, because if you don't, then he's going to convert the play and then the game's over anyway. So Mike Hilton went down to get the leverage, and Ty Johnson angled his head, and if anybody should be penalized for helmet-to-helmet contact, it's Ty Johnson. But that's not what happened. What happened is the referee threw the flag on Mike Hilton and basically ended the game right then and there. And, I mean, Bengals fans across basically every platform were furious about that call. You had Dave Portnoy, the president of Barstool Sports, who was talking about that call. And it was egregious. And I'm not here to tell you it wasn't egregious. I am here to tell you that if you're a Bengals fan and you're blaming this loss on the fact that that call got made, I can't help you. There's nothing I can really say to you. At the end of the day, the Bengals can't put themselves in position to have the refs destroy the game like that for them. But just simply as a bad call, it does need to be addressed, and I hope that, something more than the NFL officiating crew just sending out a basic apology and then never being brought up again. I hope something like that is not all that happens. Here's the thing, if the Bengals want to be taken seriously across the NFL, and maybe they don't, maybe they want to play like that surprise team that nobody's paying attention to, nobody's, ready to play against. But if they do want to be taken seriously, they can't have games like this. I know weird games happen in the NFL, but if you go out and you take care of business next week at home against the Browns, then suddenly you're 6-3 and you're right back in the thick of things, and you're right back into the good graces of whatever media outlets that you're following, and you want them to say nice things about the Bengals. The point is, don't panic over this one loss, guys. Yeah, the Bengals lost to the Jets, but it's one of 17 games. Okay, we lost to the Bears too, and we bounced back after that. And the Bears are a bad team. So, this Bengals team is up and down, a little inconsistent, and you kind of worry about the way they're playing against lesser opponents. But the way they're playing against opponents that are better than them, allegedly, is really encouraging. Don't forget that we came within a missed field goal of beating the Green Bay Packers. Now, granted, we were partially in that because of missed field goals, but at the end of the day, it was that kind of razor thin margin that, if like one or two things had gone differently for the Bengals in that game, they could have beaten the Green Bay Packers. And so how are you feeling about this season if the Bengals beat the Green Bay Packers and then lose like this to the Jets? Yeah, you're probably still feeling like, oh, maybe they're frauds. But at the same time, I don't think you can definitively say that this is not a good football team right now. Yes, they're young. Yes, they're learning. Yes, they still got a little bit to work on. But they're not a bad team. They're definitely like playoff caliber as far as talent and ability goes. And I don't see any reason to panic over this one horrible, awful, painful loss. But what are y'all's thoughts? Was I too soft on the Bengals on this one? Is it time to be hitting the panic button? Do you think that one player deserves to be shouted out? Do you think one player in particular deserves more blame for the loss than I'm giving them? Should I be blaming the refs more for this loss? Should I be lambasting them more? Although I feel like I criticized them pretty heavily. Like, it was obviously a terrible call. I just don't think the Bengals should use it as an excuse as to why they lost the game. But either way, I'm fascinated to hear what you guys think. So why don't you comment down below and let me know what you think. And I'll make sure to feature some of the best comments on my next video. You can find more of what I do at KylePhelps92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/ThePhelps. And you can also check out my writing at atbnetwork.com. I cover the Bengals. I do mostly position grades, but sometimes I'll do a preview. Sometimes I'll just write an article based on like some press conference quotes just because I feel like it. I also do power rankings, which I'll be doing some videos on this channel about. Go check out my podcast, the Battle of Ohio podcast, up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. Basically, me and Thomas Stargill from Thomas J Network. He's a big Browns fan, so we basically go head-to-head twice a week during the season and once a week not during the season. And, we talk about the games. We talk about the direction of both of these franchises. We both think that the Bengals and Browns are kind of on their way to, these big resurgences in the NFL. And, as a result, one of the biggest historic rivalries in the NFL is going to see a resurgence too. That being the Battle of Ohio. So go check that out on YouTube. Go check that out, like I said, on Spotify, on Apple. I'll link all of that stuff down below. And plus, I'll put a link down there that'll get you 69% off your first 3 months of NordVPN if you're interested in that, which I think you should be. But anyway, guys, I really appreciate everyone watching and listening. Please like, subscribe if you enjoy the content. I'll be putting out a lot more stuff like this. I'm going to be putting out a lot of stuff over the next indefinitely, really. I don't really have any plan to stop, so... but anyway, guys, I'll catch y'all next time, and as always, I'll leave y'all with a hooday.